Welcome back to another episode of What's on My Radar. We have another exciting episode for you this time, and we get lots of questions on this, always on social media. And I figured the person who gets more complaints than I do about this should join me on this. And so joining me now is Chief Meteorologist Paul Caiano. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Reid. How's the podcast going?
I think it's going good. We'll find out down the line for us here. But overall, I think you and I can both agree winter is pretty challenging for us. In regards to forecasting and just in general, there's a lot of questions that pop up. One of the ones that I always get, I'm intrigued to hear your opinion on this because I wonder if our answers vary a little bit. But when people look at a snow map that we put out,
right,
and their town's like right on the line of, let's just say, like 2 to 4 and like 4 to 8, what would you say is their snowfall forecast?
Exactly 4 inches.
Exactly 4. I like that. Perfect. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously we don't know exactly, but it could be 2 to 4 or 4 to 8. So you say 2 to 8. Is that what
I do like that?
I
kind of always in my head, I view it as like you're on the line, which means you're probably towards the higher end of the 2 to 4, and you're on the lower end of the 4 to 8. So maybe it's like do a 3 to 6 for yourself.
I like
and that's
that.
Probably closer to it.
I like that answer. I think that explains it well. And as I look at weather, I always say we like to look at trends, right? So maybe if you're watching and you see that we're on one side of that line or the other, and then the next newscast,
it moves,
moves closer to you or it's on you, now you know what direction we're thinking, right?
Yeah.
The trend line.
It's a good way to think about it. But that was always one that I know I got asked that one a lot on social media. I'm sure you have too, where you're like, But
we even flirted with the idea. I think it was me and you. We flirted with the idea of making like fuzzy lines, almost like not a sharp line for the contours. But I think then
shows how
you're really opening up that gray area.
Yeah, you are. But I mean, that's part of the challenge of our area too. I mean, you can touch on a little bit too, just some of the terrain and how difficult of a forecast that makes for us, just even with temperature.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the terrain plays a huge role, especially when you're forecasting snow or precipitation type in general, but the valleys versus the hills and the terrain. I mean, there's just so many peaks and valleys that it's impossible to outline in detail every single last one. I think we kind of rely on the intelligence of our viewers, and people know where they are. They know they're in a hill town and Rensselaer Plateau, the Helderbergs, and they know if we say we're getting 3 or 4 inches in Albany, that it probably means more for them.
Yeah, which is true. I know for us it can be frustrating because we'll do our map, but sometimes we'll get the mountain shadow or things like that, which kind of we usually get it pretty good. But like there's almost always one little part of a town that we like just quite miss on there, and then that's where we usually get the frustrated parts of it. Yeah,
and that's the whole thing. It's that it's not going to be precise for every single location, but I think it gives a pretty good outline, a generalization of what to expect. And that's another reason why we have our ranges, right? Because, I don't want to say 3 to 6 inches, because 3 inches can make somebody make a change in their plans, whereas 6 inches, it could mean a change in your whole day, right? Or everything in your day because of those difference in 3 inches. But when you're talking about a vast area, you have to put the range, because some of that area could be in a little bit of a valley and shadow, or some other place it could be on a hilltop.
I think for us, it's safe to say it's more frustrating to forecast in the winter than it is in the summer because of this reason, because people want to know what they should be doing. And with every model run, it can shift a little bit, and that impacts the plan of just part of a day or a whole day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, winter forecasting is not only incredibly difficult and it has a wide variety of options. I mean, in the summer, I think most people are a little more forgiving, where we got a passing rain shower for 20 minutes. We're able to deal with that. You know? But if you're in the car and you get this snow squall, and all of a sudden your whole day changes or your ride home changes, and people don't like that.
No, they don't. Not at all. All right, Paul, you like your your snow types pretty well?
Snow types, okay,
yeah. Just like storms. So like, what would you say is the difference between a blizzard and a snowstorm for a viewer?
For a viewer, I think a blizzard, a lot of it is based on the wind.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
And they lowered the criteria about 10 years ago for a blizzard. It used to be really, really difficult to get the technical definition of a blizzard, and people would call it a blizzard anyway. When you needed so many hours of certain visibility, like below a quarter mile, heavy snow, and then 35 knot winds or something like that, which was almost impossible to achieve.
Yeah.
So the lower definition, I think we can achieve that more, but I think more people call it a blizzard, though, if it's just a bunch of heavy snow.
Bunch of heavy snow over a period of time.
The common person, non-meteorologist, would call a big time snowstorm a blizzard if they got a full snow.
Yeah, I feel like people also with blizzard go by no visibility is like another one of that. So it's how would you help them try to classify the difference between like let's say a snow squall or a snow burst over a blizzard?
Yeah, I mean duration.
Yep.
Squall would be a lot shorter, hard hitting, but shorter, where it would be in and out within 20 minutes or a half hour, maybe a little longer than that. But a blizzard would be like an all day event or an all night event or 6+ hours, let's say, just on the low side. But that's how I would help them classify that.
Say let's take Buffalo for an example from this last winter, right? So they had was it this last winter or 2 winters ago where they had pretty much their whole seasonal snow.
Yeah, I think it was 2 winters. Yeah.
Right. Would that be classified as just intense lake effect snow, or is that a blizzard technically? Because that was coming down good and visibility was down in spots.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lake effect snow storm.
Yeah.
I think and you were closer to the lakes than I was, being out in Utica for a few years. I think anything that's lake effect is going to look like a blizzard. Because of the wind and the intensity of the snow. But I think, and we can get into the weeds with this, but when you talk about a blizzard, I think meteorologically it needs to be a synoptic scale storm, right? And for people who don't know what that is, it's just a on the scale of a country, right? A storm system that moves across the country.
The term nor'easter comes
up. Yeah, exactly.
Things like that.
Exactly. Whereas the lake effect, it's heavily localized. And I think a lot of people, they don't get that part because it doesn't move across the country. No. It stays in one place and it doesn't move from here to here. It just sits and dumps on.
We don't really get it that much here either to really be something for our area to talk about. Right. I kind of viewed it in my head whenever we had them or whenever I was sent out in them as like mini blizzard. Because it's not really like a big synoptic thing, like you're saying, but you get a lot of the same impacts that you would.
Right, and I applaud the Weather Service for starting this up a few years ago, where just like you would get a severe thunderstorm warning, you now have a snow squall warning.
Yeah,
because that totally impacts people like on a short-term basis. It's kind of like a severe thunderstorm with snow, and you could be impacted by the wind and the visibility and the heavy snow really just in a short period of time. So warning for those things in the short term, I think, is huge.
When I was in Utica, we actually started to treat those like severe thunderstorm warnings. So we would actually do the cut-ins and everything with that.
Wow, okay, good.
We knew just in general in Utica itself, or just that area, it's always a lake effect band or something along the lines in there, and then all of a sudden you get a bunch of accident reports. So
and that's the thing. A lot of times, and we shift more toward this in the last few years, the way we broadcast too, is it's all about impacts, right? Like you can get this heavy burst of snow from a snow squall, and if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, people wake up with a fresh 3 inches of snow on the ground. But if you're driving through it and you get that 3 inches between 5 and 5:30 p.m. when everyone's on the road, that 3 inches is going to be huge and impact everything. So clearly there's a difference there, and that's why you want to warn for those things.
Yeah. We talked, we already touched on a bunch of different types of snowstorms here. You already mentioned snow squalls. We mentioned lake effect here. What about, everybody, we even said nor'easter for a quick second there. Alberta Clipper, what's that?
Alberta Clipper, when a fast moving system, I'll call it Canada, but usually it's Western Canada. It swings right through the northern tier of states and blows through here, usually with a bunch of wind and a quick shot of snow. Probably in the medium to low end when it comes to how much snow we get, generally speaking. But it's in and out in a day or less, and you get a coating and it blasts the cold air behind it.
Yeah. Nor'easter, we touched on. Obviously, we have the low coming up the coastline, winds from the northeast.
Right.
There's a term in there, though, that I feel like we watch for that people don't really know about, and that's dry slotting. Would you like to explain what that is?
Well, in a mature storm, you have, let's say out ahead of this storm, you have a big push of warm, moist air that rides over the cold air, and you get a whole big batch of snow. Mm-hmm. But after that pushes through, and before the upper level energy comes through, a lot of times there's a gap.
Yep.
And you can get, and this is what makes forecasting these storms really challenging. If the storm is really compact or it's really got a lot of moisture with it, you don't get that gap, and you can get the warm air snow, if you will, the warm advection snow, we call it, meeting up with the dynamically induced snow from the jet stream level. And those two things, when you combine those two, that's when you get your biggest storms. But if one comes through and then you get a gap and then the other comes through, you sometimes miss on the snowfall amounts. And a lot of that's because of that dry slot that comes in between.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good definition for it, Paul. I got another term for you, right? I'm going to drop it just because I want to hear what you have to say about this one.
Sure.
Bomb cyclone.
Bomb cyclone. I think that that's a cool name.
I hate it.
You don't like it?
No, it drives me insane.
I wasn't a fan, but I think just in general, I've warmed up to a little bit more of the non-technical meteorology in the last few. I mean, I remember coming out of school, everything was just, for me, I wanted everything to be precise and technical and scientific. But I realize now that we don't reach the public with our geeking out as much as and doing what we do. I think one of our biggest jobs, really, if not the biggest job, is to reach the public.
Yeah.
And if we can get people to pay attention more to what we're saying for their own good, but really just to be aware. And I think using terminology that is kind of catchy and it's not wrong. It's just, something that maybe garners a little more attention, I think can be a positive. Whereas in the past, I would never have liked that. But that's the reason why I don't mind it.
I think you see it on both sides right now where some people view it as quote unquote fear mongering almost to an extent.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Whereas others are viewing it, like you said, more as an educational opportunity. I'm kind of more in that boat of when people go bomb cyclone, you go, oh, well, it's after the term bombogenesis. I know you don't care about what that word means, but it just means it's a really strong strengthening storm. Like that's all you need to know, really. And that's where as long as they get that point across, I think people are okay with it.
Right. And it also means that, we can have, it's probably going to be one of the bigger storms of the season and we can expect something significant out of it. So it kind of gets people more aware than just your run of the mill snowstorm.
Yeah. Paul, what's one of your favorite things about just wintertime in general?
I mean, from meteorologically, I think I like the fast movement of all these storms. I love snow and I love snowstorms. I mean, ever since I was a kid. So that's one of the things that really got me into meteorology. I love extremes too. So even though, I'm not going to be cheering when I'm walking from my car to the building when the wind chill's 30 below. But if we can get to like a 30 or 40 below wind chill just to say we did it, I'm up for that.
Really, let's get a t-shirt. Let's wet it. Let's throw it out there and see how long it takes. Yeah. Right. I like that. Anything you like in particular about just being out in the snow?
I mean, I like to experience all different kinds of weather, but I always try to find something unique about each storm that I'm in, right? Like the size of the flakes or the intensity or there's so many different kinds of snowflakes. And I just gotta pay attention to that type of stuff. So I'm always looking and searching for things. Oh, that's interesting. You try to dissect why it's doing this and not that, or why it did this for so long and something different otherwise. I
would agree with you. I mean, for in general, I do like the challenges of a snowfall forecast. I think is fun. It makes the live shots, usually I'm the one who gets out in those. So
congratulations.
Yay. I tend to also do what you're saying is when you're out there, I start to kind of make notes of what kind of snowflakes we have or things like that, which is always fun. But I feel like that's like every season we have stuff that we look forward to. And so like for me, like severe thunderstorms now, I like to look at the structure of the storms as they come through. They look awesome.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, more than anything, I think meteorologically, it's just the challenge of forecasting, and really, that's why I'm here. It's one of the most challenging areas in the nation to forecast. We get, as you can look at this summer, how many severe thunderstorms and tornado warnings we've had, and there's never a dull moment, right?
No.
We can have our tropical systems. We've talked about that, and then you go right into winter. So we do have our lulls sometimes, but we get a little bit of everything here, and
really
I guess meteorologically, it's sort of where you want to be if you're a weather forecast.
Yeah, one of my weird favorite parts about snow is, and I'll notice this sometimes on a live shot. So maybe you did it too back in the day. But you ever go out there in the middle of a snowstorm and like you already got a couple good inches of snow on the ground, and you just have that silence to it?
Yeah, sure.
I love that.
Yeah,
it's so unique and it's calming. But it's
I know what you're talking about. It's peaceful.
It's peaceful. I mean, it has to do with the flakes itself, actually. The science behind it is they kind of dampen the sound. So it's just naturally a little bit more quiet.
Okay.
Which I was like, that's pretty cool in
Yeah.
general. But I always kind of wondered why we had that. But I had to look that one up for this talk.
Yeah. Listen for the science.
Yeah.
Or listen for the silence.
Yeah. Listen for the lack thereof of silence for us here. Paul, why do you think it usually takes us up until May to get our first 12 inches of snow?
Wait, up until May?
Or, sorry.
I'm like, hold on.
February. I lied. I'm sorry. I'm on lake effect time. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, February. Yeah, I think especially now with climate change, we don't get as much of the cold air intrusion that we would normally in a season. Obviously, we can get it in November, December, but with the heart of the coldest air coming in January climatologically, and you know, with the contrast between that and the warm ocean waters, and that's what produces these big coastal storms. I think that's why it probably takes as long. You want to get as much of that contrast as possible. And January being the coldest month, obviously still have some warm water out there, relatively speaking. It's going to create that baroclinic zone, if you will, right along the coast, and then you get these lows that ride up the coast, and there's your storms.
I like it, Paul. I like it. You ready for I figured I'd throw a curveball at you here. You want some weather trivia from the snow? Let's test out the Chief's knowledge here.
Let's hear it.
So we got a true or false one to start for you.
Okay.
If you've been out in the cold and are afraid you have frostbite, you should have rubbed that affected area with snow.
Rub it with snow?
Yes.
I'm going to say false.
That one is false.
Okay.
That makes it more damaged if you do that. So don't do that.
Put cold on cold, I guess.
But you can also warm that frostbite spot, but not too quickly. Otherwise, you're going to give the reverse effect to yourself. So that's a big one to keep note of. Question 2. How many sides does a regular snow crystal have? Would you
crystal?
Well, you know,
snowflake. Well, that would be 6.
Oh, I didn't even have to give you the multiple choice answers.
Yeah. Oh,
that's good.
There's multiple choice.
There's 6. Yep,
okay.
You were right.
Yeah.
You got it. There was 4, 5, 6, or 8.
Okay.
But you got it. 6 is good. Good job. You're gonna like this one too. I know you like your math. Ready?
Yeah.
So car A and car B. You already like this already.
Yeah, I like this. I'm picturing this. Yeah.
Car A and car B are traveling down ice-glazed roads at the same speeds in 2 different locations. Temperature where car A is traveling is 30 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature where car B is traveling is 0 degrees Fahrenheit. The drivers of both cars hit the brakes at exactly the same moment. If both cars and roads they travel are otherwise identical, which car comes to a stop first?
Wow. I'm only going to say the 30-degree car because I feel like there's more moisture and there's going to be more friction, but I'm not so sure about that. I'm like making this up.
You know, it's like when I read this one too. You know what graphic I was thinking of? The wet leaf graphic that we use always in the fall.
Yeah. You're going to tell me it's 0 now.
It is car B is going to stop before car A because the car driving on ice at 30 needs a braking distance twice as long as the car driving on ice at 0 degrees. Since the ice is more slippery near freezing point.
Got it. Okay.
You're close. You're close.
Yeah.
This is the only one I felt like that might stump you.
Yeah.
Because it's way too much math in a very short question.
Yeah, I mean, the philosophy is there, though, the amount of friction, right?
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a live shot that we'll do one day down the line for us here, maybe.
You could use your car for it.
Yeah, we'll take your car and my car. We'll go find an identical road, and we'll get there. Have you ever heard of snow blindness?
I don't think so.
It's a condition caused by sunlight reflecting off of the snow.
Oh, high albedo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the percentage of the sun's rays that's actually reflected back from freshly fallen snow?
Freshly fallen snow. Wow, I feel like it should be a lot because it is bright.
Yeah.
And we know that our coldest days.
We don't even have to have that. We can just do it on our roof here. We go up there.
Oh my gosh.
Don't we do that joke where like I'll cover my nose down so I don't get the albedo and that's fine.
Yeah. And our coldest days in the winter are when you have that snowpack because you don't absorb the solar radiation. So I'm going to say like 80%.
You're pretty close, actually. You want to guess higher or lower?
I'll guess lower.
It is higher.
Ooh.
Typically around 87%.
Wow. Okay, good.
Fresh snow.
Nice.
But yeah, obviously if it's not fresh, it's going to be a little bit lower than that. So yeah, that was pretty good, Paul. Cool. Good guess.
Cool.
All right. This one's going to be a fun one because you already know this answer really quick. Many celebrations occur near the shortest day of the year. What's that day called?
The winter solstice.
There you go. Nailed it. The word winter comes from an old Germanic word wintar, so W-I-N-T-A-R.
Okay.
What does it mean?
Ooh, it probably has something to do with wintar.
I feel like the Italian you shouldn't really know the answer.
Oh,
to
now
this
you're
one.
throwing me way off.
The Italian you should not know this one.
I want to say some kind of celebration for Christmas or something. I don't know.
It goes with time of water is the meaning of winter.
Okay.
Isn't it interesting for just the German term? I didn't realize it was German when we got it from that. So
Okay.
cool. Yeah. I figured, man, pop quiz, we'll throw that one at Paul too. Which has a colder winter, Northern Hemisphere or the Southern Hemisphere?
The Northern Hemisphere.
You know why?
I would say because the Northern Hemisphere has more land mass, and we know that the land heats up and cools down faster than ocean or water, and more of the Southern Hemisphere is water.
That would be correct.
Nice.
Good job. You smart. This is why you're the chief. Man.
Oh, come on.
This is going good for you. How quickly, I think this is one that I don't think you know this one. So I'm excited to actually give you this one when I found this.
Okay.
How quickly do snowflakes fall from the sky?
Well, that depends on well, no, it shouldn't depend, right? 9.8 meters per second.
Yeah, there you go. Times the way. Yeah, there you go. So going with, let's give me miles per hour.
Oh, I don't know. What is it? 30? No, that's feet per second. I don't know. What is it in miles per hour? I don't know it off the top of my head.
3 to 4 miles an hour.
3 to 4 miles an hour.
Yep.
I said 3. Yeah, 30.
Not too fast.
Right.
So,
Okay.
you don't get clobbered by it.
Right.
It's funny to think, though, because it looks like it's coming down way harder, but it really has to do with more so wind sometimes or just volume.
Right.
What you have. But I thought the 3 to 4 was an interesting one.
It is. It's
Fine.
about as fast as we walk.
Is it really?
Oh,
Would you say?
it's like about as fast as we walk.
All right.
3 to 4
I feel like I
miles.
walk much faster than that.
Well, you
but-
do, and probably I do too. But
Yeah.
I think the average person, they say walk at 3 miles an hour.
Oh. Well, what do you know? You learn something new every day. Thanks, Paul. What do you say is more dangerous, hypothermia or frostbite?
Ooh, I guess I wouldn't want either,
Yeah.
but I think hypothermia probably can kill you, but frostbite, you could lose a limb.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Both are bad.
Both are pretty bad. You know what? I'm going to go a different direction here. I'm just going to say frostbite because I think hypothermia, you can kind of go into like that state where you get like a carbon freeze or something like
yeah, I
Han
get what you're
Solo, and then you can be, recover or something like that.
I get that.
But I'm not sure. It's probably hypothermia.
It is hypothermia. So it's when a person has hypothermia, they can't think clearly. So
Right.
that I think they say is a little bit more dangerous than
You just
having
made bad
them-
decisions.
Yes,
after
you're just
that.
going to make bad decision after bad decision at that
Okay.
point and not really help yourself out all too much. So I think that's the reasoning behind that quiz part. You know what the width of the largest snowflake is on record?
Really?
That's the last question I got for you.
Okay, so
Do you
the
need
width,
multiple choice? Or do
let
you
me
want
try it without the multiple choice.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm going to say it's going to seem low probably, but I'm going to say 4 inches.
So your choices are 3 inches, 5 inches, 10 inches, or 15 inches.
Wow. All right. So let's say 5 inches.
You would be wrong. It'd be 15 inches.
Get out of here.
It's-
It's a
I'm gonna
snowball?
put the asterisk
Somebody
on it.
hit with a snowball.
It was in like Montana before photos were a thing. So if some farmer reported it and Guinness like verified it. So
Really? I wonder how they
that's
did
what
that.
They went with on that.
Okay.
One. But yeah, it's not bad, right?
That's interesting. I've seen all different kinds of sizes of snowflakes and intensities, and I'm just
Yeah.
wondering how they can get a 15
I don't know
inch
how you
snowflake.
get that one, but I feel like if anywhere were to get it, it'd be that section of the country.
Probably,
right?
yeah. A lot of collision coalescence going on with that.
Yep. Well, that was the episode, Paul. Thank you for joining us on this one. Hopefully, you had some fun.
I loved it.
Stumped you with my trivia, or I'm not fired by the end of this episode. But it was great. We appreciate that, and then we'll talk to you soon in a minute here. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate it. As always, if you ever have questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media or email, and we'll always try to answer them. Thanks, everyone.